So today I'm joined by Melissa O'Shaughnessy, a street photographer from New York City. Her work resonates with me because of the very natural moments and expressions of the people she photographs on the street, which are to me very interesting and at times even very amusing to observe. To me, there's a big I don't know if comedy is the right aspect, but there's a funny aspect to her photos. So, hey, Melissa, could you introduce yourself for a second?
Hey, well, thank you so much, Frederick, for having me. As you said, I'm a New York City-based street photographer. I've been photographing out on the streets for about 10 years. I'll take this little occasion to plug my book, which was recently republished by Aperture after being out of print for many years. So that book is called Perfect Strangers and is, I think, a good representation of my body of work, which I continue to do both in New York and elsewhere now. uh, as I continue to look at the world and try to find humor and pathos and joy and struggle in the real world as it's lived out in public.
That's cool. Yeah, yeah. I've ordered the book. It's not here yet, but it's on its way here. So I'm
Fantastic. Thank
very
you.
looking forward to that one. Um, so you mentioned that you were looking for or let- first let's start back to the 10 years ago. Did you just like jump in street photography immediately? Was it like a big love within seconds, or did it take some time?
It took some time. I had started photography 5 or 6 years earlier, actually working with black and white. I had a darkroom in our home because my son had taken a photography course in high school and wanted to build a darkroom. So we cobbled together a little closet in the basement, and his passion waned, and I figured, well, I ought to learn what this is all about. So I started out really not on the street at all. I was very shy. I did a lot of landscape and architecture and city things. And it wasn't until I took a workshop with Joel Meyerowitz that the little bug and the little seed was planted about street photography. Joel mentioned that street photography and the split second was the really unique capability of the camera. Uh, Painters had done portraits and landscapes, and sculptors had done the human figure, and the split second was something that was unique to the camera, and it really planted a seed of a spark of interest for me. I started out maybe in 2013, 14, and I was terribly shy. I didn't think that I had the moxie to be out on the street and to take pictures of strangers. But I was really determined and really fascinated by this approach and this idea that it's such a unique it's a unique capacity of photography to catch this split seconds. I was just very determined and out on the street a couple days a week, and it took me a year or 2 to start making pictures here and there that I thought were getting somewhere. So that was the genesis. Um, and then I was off to the races.
Wow, yeah, that's cool that you because I've to me it's surprising that you would follow a workshop with Meyerowitz that early in your street photography career. But it's cool that it sparked such a long career already. Like 10 years is for a lot of people already a long time.
And interesting, the workshop wasn't a street photography workshop. It was just a photography workshop because, as you may know, Joel has worked in many areas of photography. Not he's maybe best known for his street work, but his career certainly has encompassed kind of everything that a camera can do, from the small handheld Leica to the large 8x10 view camera.
Okay, so there
So
was a general workshop. Okay, yeah.
it was a more general workshop, but, his idea that the split second is really an important aspect of what the camera does was really sent me down the street, as they say.
Literally and yeah, figuratively. That's cool. Yeah, and you mentioned the dark room in your house. do you still do some analog work, or is it purely
I
digital now?
don't. I've slowly I moved to digital. When the digital cameras moved to full frame, I think it was maybe a Nikon D700 or 7000, something like that, that I felt because I had quickly moved from 35 millimeter to medium format in the darkroom because I wanted the information. I wanted more of a negative to work with, a sharper image. And so when the digital cameras went full frame is when I started to move to color.
Okay, as well. So
Yeah.
you used to do
And
only black and white and then
yeah.
evolved to color.
And I think if I was to do a project in black and white again, I'd probably use film because I've never been able to uh, take a color digital image and process it to look like the film that I was accustomed to. So I think if I was to go back to analog, it would be because I would want to work in black and white.
Okay.
The beautiful Tri-X film has such a look that I've never been able to replicate in a digital image.
So do you, because we're talking about color and black and white now, and you mainly shoot color, well, digitally color. Is there like a reason for you to go back to black and white, or is it more like maybe a
Not right now,
once?
but
No, yeah.
it's not right now, but my attraction to black and white, I think resides in film.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I prefer color as well, but of course it's a personal choice for everyone. There's also like a moment for each.
I
So that
think
was why I was
for
wondering.
me, color is more challenging. It's more exacting and certainly on the street, so unpredictable. So I don't know, it's whatever is your constraint that works for you. And right now, color is working for me.
I find it a very interesting word, the constraint. Do you need like constraint in your street photography or in your photography in general to have it be creative, or?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think maybe constraints are more meaningful in terms of a body of work or a project, that you can't just say everything is potential for this body of work. So certainly their constraints are important. And yes, I do think it's like back in high school and college when you were assigned a paper, uh, you were always told constrain what you're going to do, or you're going to have too much material to work with. So I think in terms of, I mean, I start with a very open approach to the streets, but it has to it has to start funneling into something meaningful, and that is usually the constraints that you give it. In the case of my book, it was the city itself. It was Manhattan. Uh, it was the minute I started to pull in pictures from other places, it it felt too undefined as to what I was trying to get at. But certainly the constraint does not need to be geographical. Maybe the subject matter or the mood of a body of work,
Very true, yeah. So, and do
or the
you?
camera you're using, or the format you're shooting in, or the color palette. It can be any number of things.
Yeah, I think if we start listing up things, I think we can fill an hour very very fast with just a list of possible
Yeah.
constraint ideas. So is that, do you always work like, because you're speaking about project? Is that something you're always have a project in mind, or do you go out in the streets and then afterwards say like, this photo fits here, this photo fits here, or?
No, I don't. I work very loose, and I let the project bubble up from the work. The the That's how my book came about. It was I was shooting everywhere. I was shooting all over New York, but the the work for me, I mean, some people say you have to have an idea when you go out, and I for me that doesn't work because then I'm missing things, or I'm so focused on one thing that I'm not open to other things that are happening. I'm working in a split second in the real world, in the rain, in the snow, in the sun, in the light, and if you're you tend to, if you're looking for something specific, you tend to find it, but then perhaps you're missing other things that are going on. So I start with a very open approach and let the as the pictures accumulate, as the interesting pictures accumulate, then it starts to gel into something. Your vision, your point of view start to direct you to what you're saying. That's for me, that's how I approach it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the messages from this podcast as well. It's like there's no right or wrong. It's just every photographer has their way of working, and it's only here to inspire how you could work. And so you don't really go out like you go out the door in the morning or whatever with like an idea of I need these pictures or this subject or whatever, or it's just
No, no, very open to
yeah.
listen, the good pictures are very, very few and far between. It so many pictures, every street photography person who's doing this takes a lot of really terrible, boring, failed pictures. It's an exercise in failure, and it becomes an exercise in humility. You come back and you think I was out for 6 or 7 hours and I got nothing. And it can be very discouraging, but that leads you into thinking more about how you enjoy the process and what you get out of the process and what you learn from the process. And for me, it's become watching the world and being more open to human behavior and light and mood. The, the more you leave yourself open to chance, the more you can be delighted and surprised by what is going to appear in front of you.
Yeah,
When
and
you know,
your photos are very surprising. Like there are a lot of instances that I could not imagine. So it's very
well,
very
that's
fun.
and that is the appeal for me, that therein lay the deep appeal to working in this way. It is truth is stranger than fiction, and things that happen and how things can come together on the street are things that you couldn't imagine or set up, really. You're really relying on serendipity and the energy of the street and the delight of how people can behave. You've become a bit of a sociologist. You do it long enough, you start to understand that how things might come together if you wait a few seconds. You start to be able to anticipate what people might do. But my favorite photographs of mine, I think, and others, are those that have such serendipity in them. Things come together quickly, and things that the great surprise of when you open a picture, when you look at it, when you open a file or develop a negative, and you see things in the picture that you did not see when you took the photograph. And that is the real delight. You're hanging on to a moment, but the cameras are revealing more in a moment than your brain can absorb in that split second. And so it's a way for us to examine the world, to hold on to a moment to examine the world more carefully. Uh, and that's what keeps you going through all those long days of failure, is those moments when things do come together and show us something about who we are as people. We're funny, we do odd things, we're beautiful, we're predictable and unpredictable in the same frame. And that's what that's what compels me. I think that's what compels a lot of people to do this very inefficient, kind of strange thing. I mean, when you talk to someone who knows nothing about photography or street photography, and you say, "Well, I go out all day and I take pictures of strangers," it seems maybe not as odd these days as it did 10 or 20 years ago. It's like, why would you want a picture of someone you don't know? Why would you want that? I think it's become a with Instagram and the internet, I think it's become a much, much more broadly understood genre. But really, when you think about it, it is kind of odd. We're all kind of strange
If you put
in
it this way,
it.
it's really
Yeah.
strange.
I
Yeah,
mean, like,
it's
why would
almost
you
yeah.
want a picture of someone you don't know? Why are you taking pictures of strangers? But I do it because it reveals something about the world to me and about me to myself.
Yeah, I was gonna ask because you were talking about, observing people, and what it tells about them. But I was also wondering, do you reflect that back to yourself? Like, do you know more things about yourself now through photography, or are there things that you see in your own work that you're like, this is very like personal to me, that resembles me?
Very much so. I think sometimes others can see it in your work more than you can see it yourself. Sometimes, I have 3 children, and when they were young, people say, "Oh, your children all look like siblings." And when you're so close to your kids or your family, you maybe don't see that strong resemblance. And sometimes it helps to have someone else to look at your work or say, "Yeah, that really looks like one of your pictures." But yes, I mean, I think one of the things that I love about this process is that it's made me a more confident and outgoing person. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an introvert. I'm quite shy, actually. But when you're out in the world and observing people and lifting your camera to take pictures of people, slowly you become, I think, more outgoing, more interested in other people, less threatened or frightened or reticent in the presence of other people. So I've made so many friends on various street corners in the city and through a shared passion, and it's opened up a really rich texture in the world for me that I might not have otherwise seen or experienced. You're putting yourself out in the world all the time, all day long. And it's kind of a strangely introverted process that brings on a degree of extroversion in in your work and in your life. So, yeah, it's changed me, it's helped me grow. I think also, hopefully, if you're building a body of work that's identifiable to you, it will start to show in your pictures, your life experiences, your interests, what attracts you, what makes you lift that camera to your eye are all very internal impulses. I have 3 children, I have 6 grandchildren. Mother recently died. I cared for her for many, many years. So looking at the elderly or looking at families and how to behave and crying children and family resemblances, these are all things that attract me and make me lift the camera to my eye, and those are all based on my own experience. But then hopefully you grow beyond that and your interest, expands to more than just your own experience, but hopefully you communicate it in a way that is somehow, some way identifiable. I mean, some people have said of my work that it's very intimate. Well, I'm short and I hit people lower than a 6 foot tall man. And I think that the very fact of my height does lend my pictures something, a lower perspective that maybe that people have said gives them a sense of intimacy, but that's beyond my control. I'm only so tall. And I can get a little lower, but usually I'm shooting from about my eye level. But my eye level is lower than your average man, and this is still there are lots of women doing it, but it's still more men, I think. And are certainly the history of the genre is to a large degree that the work of men and who are just taller, in general. So that's a very, very broad generalization, but I think that is something that plays a little part in giving my work a certain identity.
Yeah, I like I don't like I love how conscious you are about all these thoughts about how it reflects back to you and all those things. And it's funny you mentioned the height because I was wondering if you well, not necessarily because of the perspective, but also because how the photos were made, if you were shooting from the hip or not. But then
No.
you're always looking through the viewfinder?
Yep, I'm always almost always. I'm no good at shooting from the hip. I cut people off, and I've never gotten that right. And to me, it feels a little sneaky. I mean, I'm very quick, but I'm not trying to be sneaky. I wear my camera around my neck. It's not wrapped around my wrist. I kind of dress very simply and unobtrusively, and I kind of try to look like a tourist. So
Okay,
people so people see me coming. I've got the camera. I always raise it to my eye because I am trying to frame I mean, listen, there's a lot of the failure is because you miss the moment, you miss the framing, you miss the composition.
that's the
But
game, of course. Yeah.
I get it to my eye very quickly, up and down. I'm not just holding the camera in front of my face. I'm pretty quick when I see a situation coming, and I'm working with a fixed focal length, so I don't have to fiddle with a zoom. I work kind of equally with a 28 or a 35, so I know what that's going to do for me pretty quickly. I know when I'm in the right position to just get the camera up and down very quickly. So usually I'm unnoticed, but I do bring it to my eye.
Okay, yeah, because your photos feel very candid, so that's why I was wondering for the shooting from the hip, not really for the perspective, but mainly because it's like your subjects are very unbothered or how do you say it?
Unnoticed. I'm
Unnoticed.
unnoticed.
Yeah, or they're very candid. There's no interaction, or rarely there's like people looking into the lens, or
Yeah.
so
Well, I'm not a purist in that regard at all. I don't mind someone gazing into the lens, and it's usually the children who notice you first because they really pay attention in a way that many adults do not. So I have a number of pictures where the children are looking straight at me, and the adults are clueless. And I've said before, it's a reminder that we should try to look at the world with that sort of attention that a child can manage. They're really noticing everything around them. So I don't mind if there's eye contact. It happens, and sometimes it's a really interesting element in a photograph. But I try not to bruise the situation. I try not to be the focal point of the life on the street.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's you're very people oriented. Is there a reason for you mentioned, of course, being shy, and now that you developed, but was there like an original um purpose that you were shooting people in general, and especially, or maybe your style was always this up close to people, but is there an idea? Because
Well,
some people are, yeah.
I think it's people I'm after. It's the life on the street that I'm after. And when I started out in photography, and as I started to become interested in street photography, even earlier when I was doing black and white work, I found myself in the books that I was buying, the photographs that I was most interested in had people in them. And I, I, I I worked in the landscape early on, but I kind of bored myself pretty quickly. Not that I wouldn't do it again. I certainly would. I think there's beautiful work done that doesn't have people in it. But what I was interested in was the human condition and the incredible variety and energy of people out living their life in public places. So it's what I'm interested in. It's what it it is the larger purpose for me in using a camera.
That's
And
very nice. Yeah.
the fact that it is so quick, it is so unpredictable. The surprises are very gratifying in a way that bringing a camera out into the landscape just isn't for me. It's the surprise. It's the surprise of what shows up uh, in the lens and the picture in the world that propels me at this point.
It's yeah. It's maybe easier in New York. I'm not sure, but in Antwerp, there's like very little there's not a lot of people, so there's less surprise in that regard. So when it happens, it makes you very happy. But yeah, it's very that's the fun thing. If you see something unexpected, that's what you're after. You can always make aesthetic photos shooting through a broken window or whatever. But those unique moments that for me as well, they're what make me happy.
Yeah, and New York is a generous place, and it's funny, again, back to being an introvert. I sometimes giggle to myself because I'll find myself in the most crowded place that can be found in the city, and these were places that I would never have been drawn to 15 or 20 years ago. I would have avoided like the plague. I kinda hate crowds, but again, that's changed because that's where the food is, that's where the material is. So, I dive headfirst into these very crowded, chaotic places. And then
That's
the
very
challenge
cool.
is to tame it a bit, not make it so chaotic that it's unreadable. So I just went to the Minnesota State Fair. For years, I've been trying to get there in August. I grew up in Minnesota, which is in the Midwest of the United States. And as a child and teenager and young adult, went to the state fair, and I thought, oh, that might be a fun thing to go turn into a project. But and it was so crowded. It was so crowded that I couldn't make sense of it. It was just a mass of humanity, and the world had changed a lot. My memory of the place was different from what it has become. Interestingly, even though it was so crowded, I found the people more homogenized. People, it used to be that you'd get the really rough, kind of gruff-looking out-of-state farmers, and the carnival attendants were really, really rough characters who looked like they had been up all night in a bar fight. And now it's very sanitized. It's very, all the carnies were in nice, clean, white, blue polo shirts, and the people, I didn't get the sense of the diversity that I remembered from 35 or so years ago. It it I think that's a problem everywhere, how much more homogenized culture has become around the world even. People from, Rome to New York to California to probably Antwerp and all over the place. Even I've not spent much time in the Far East, but I think there's in our dress and in our demeanor, there's been a certain leveling and a globalization that has made the world less diverse
Mm. Yeah,
in
I can
many
imagine
ways.
what you're trying to say. Um, but at the same
So
time, yeah. No, go
so I
ahead. Yeah.
spent a couple days at the state fair and I thought, oh, do I want to do this every year for 5 years? And the answer was no. So I actually spent a
Okay.
lot of time in the cow barn and the pig barn and where the really state fair, the animals and then the horses. I found that more interesting, and the people around them is kind of where I ended up spending my time. But I haven't really gone through the pictures yet. This was just a week ago. So, but the idea, I think the challenge now too is that the world has become, you see less characters on the street. There's people dress alike and everyone's on their phone. So it's always a challenge. I think every era has presented its challenges. People are maybe a little more sensitive about having their picture taken, but I'm small and I'm middle-aged and I'm a petite woman, and I don't think I'm very threatening. Uh, so that works to my advantage. But yeah, we're documenting our world. We're documenting the time we live in. So this is the material we're working with. We're working with the world as it looks now. And
Yeah, I
I
was
think it
thinking
will
it could
be,
be a subject as well, like the
yeah,
homogenation, I should say. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I can imagine it's true. If you look at the older photos, it's very well, of course there's a nostalgia part maybe, but it looks so much more fun in those days. But at the same time, I also think about there's you only see the best work of the photographers back then. So it's always like um it's hard to compare the photos and the vision we had of earlier days and from now for me, because we have this. Well, first of all, you only have black and white back then, and now we have color. It's different outfits, but yeah. So it's for me, it's hard to compare. Uh,
Well, I think it certainly in kind of the larger art world, and there's not a lot of interest in contemporary street photography, but the minute something takes on, the patina of age and the value of maybe in a vintage print and the value of 30 or 40, 50, 60 years between now and what the world like then, street photography then takes on a greater appeal to people, I think, because there is that it's nostalgia. This look at what the world used to look like. So I started so late in life, I'll be dead before my work gets that kind of age on it. But I do think it is it's an important genre, I think, in this open way of looking at the world and our history and what the world looked like. We're recording human nature, how people behaved, how the city looked. I mean, there's a real appeal to photographs from 70 or 80 years ago when there was so much smog and the air wasn't very clean. It was very beautiful, made for very beautiful photographs. But we don't want to be out all day breathing that anymore. The world it's certainly the United States is much cleaner. The air is much cleaner than it used to be.
that's
So
actually my hate for Antwerp is it's too clean. Like the streets,
yeah,
it's all very like you don't have many like bus stops with windows that are graffitied on, or it's all very clean. That's my annoyance with the city because it gives less photo opportunities, but at the same time, yeah, it's better to live in, of course.
yeah,
So it's yeah,
yeah. Well, I think the challenge, I think, always is if I'm lucky to be in New York City, but the big challenge is to make work where you are because that's where you're going to be able to make
exactly, yeah,
the most work. So I think you have to um, embrace where you are and try to record what it is now if street photography is your passion and your interest.
very true, yeah.
So really, too much work coming out of New York. The popular corners get crowded on a beautiful afternoon. There's a lot of street photographers, so it's a real challenge to make work that's unique to you because it's a crowded field in New York. It really is, and the history of street photography is bloated with the work of New York photographers, but it is a mecca. So,
And do you
um,
notice it now with like Instagram taking off, for example, because you've been doing this for 10 years, which is more or less since the start of Instagram? Do you notice like a difference in the amount of people you see in the streets doing street photography?
yeah, it ebbs and flows. I've been pretty consistently working for the past 10 years in New York. I've seen, groups of photographers come and go who haven't stuck with it or have changed. Listen, it can be a demoralizing and exhausting thing. And not everybody stays with it. I think Instagram certainly played a e- essential part in the growth and popularity of street photography. But and there are the diehards. There are people I know who've been out there doing it just like me consistently for a decade and more. Uh, but people do come and go. We all recognize each other, the regulars out there, which is a great thing. I've made great friends over the years on Fifth and 42nd and Herald Square. So there's a very personal side to it, which has been a delight. And I certainly think Instagram and has fueled the interest. Whether it sustains, I think everybody's noticing people aren't engaging with Instagram nearly as much as they did in the earlier days when it wasn't so bloated with advertising and so controlled by the algorithm. I think people felt their their feed was more personal, and they could follow who they followed and see the work, and now it feels kind of beyond the control. But listen, I don't own my Instagram account. I use it. It's an important tool for photographers these days, but not for a minute do I think I own my following or my exposure. It's Meta's got it, and you have to live with it and deal with it. And just no one has come in to replace it, unfortunately.
Not yet, no. Yeah, you
It's
have
it's
the
it's
photo app, but it's not the
it's a
size of a
necessary evil. Nothing
yeah.
nothing has come in to replace it yet. Some have tried, um, but it is what it is. I think a lot of people are pretty disgruntled, but what are you gonna do?
For me,
You
it's
know?
up and down. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But so you mentioned, or not really meeting up with people in the streets, bumping into other photographers in the street. I also saw you were a member of women street photographers and up photographers. Is there like, did joining a community change your work or your way of thinking about street photography, or was it
Uh,
purely
Oh, yes and no. The women street photographers is not something you join. Gulnara Samaloiva founded it to really show the work of women street photographers. She felt that they were underrepresented and not given enough attention, and so she started running contests and doing 2 or 3 times a year. She does incredible shows of the work of women street photographers. So that's just, I've been a part of it because I've submitted work, and it's a great community of women who support each other. But, I think most women too just don't want to be known as a woman street photographer. I certainly don't. I mean, I'm a woman, but I mean, I don't
you're
think
a street
men run
photographer? Yeah.
around saying, I'm a male street photographer. I'm a street photographer, and um, but it's a very laudable thing she's done. I think she's brought a lot of attention to the great work that women are doing. Certainly, at the time she started it, it was clear that women were underrepresented. Up Photographers is a collective that kind of grew out of the old In Public collective, which was really the first and probably best known street photography collective that was formed probably 20 years ago. And that was we're just not as active as we used to be as a group. It's not a collective with any mercantile purpose. It's photographers from all over the world, and so uh, a couple of us used to kind of keep the show on the road for a while. But I think people's interest diverged, and it was hard to keep this group pulling, involved in any meaningful way. I think we're all doing a show in Pisa in September. Unfortunately, I can't make it over there. So now and then projects will pop up, or we'll have a nice Zoom call. We were good during the pandemic when nobody could be out and about, to have monthly Zoom meetings just to catch up with each other. So it's become as much just a group of friends as a collective with any real purpose at this point. And it's just hard if you don't have a president or a charter or dues or some collective quote unquote purpose. I think these groups are kind of hard to keep to keep together. Certainly now, I think the kind of the age of the collective seems uh, to be a little behind us. But it's an incredible group of talented people who are all still out photographing and making work. And if we're all in the same city or in Paris for Perry Photo or in a group show, I think we'll gather as many as we can, and it's lovely. So for me, at this point, it's become again about the friendships that I've made as much about any purpose of the collective as a whole.
But it didn't really impact you like creatively or visionary, like to
Well, when I was starting out, I would go to the In Public website, all the time to look at the new work that they were putting up and the other photographers they were showing, and the work that was being done. Um, and I think we keep I'm actually run the website for the group, and we try to get new stuff up every now and then, so it doesn't just feel like the flotsam of the internet. Um, and I would love to. I have put a shout out to say, hey, if you have new work, let's get some new portfolios up. Because I think at now the website is, I think, is a resource for street photographers who want to look at work online and not just on Instagram. But Instagram really bigfooted a lot of things. And now, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. A lot of people are kind of disgruntled with Instagram and not putting the energy into it that they used to. Plus, the pictures are 2 inches wide. If you really want to look at street photography, like, it would be lovely. I mean, go to a museum and or a gallery and look at people's websites and things on your computer screen, so you have a little more real estate to appreciate the complexity of what can be going on in these pictures.
True, yeah. That's why I love websites as well. It presents the photos much better in much more like I just more qualitative way. It's not just like, as you said, a small picture on a phone screen.
But it's also, I'll just put a plug in here for printing, for printing your work. It's really, when I print my work, I'll start
Yeah,
with
I
a little
see a
by
wall
4 by,
behind you.
yeah, yeah, I'm just kind of putting some pairs together. Print your work because you're going to find problems in a print that you might not otherwise notice, or strengths. And you can put it up on a wall and walk by it 10 times a day, and the picture will grow on you or not. A print is it's a good skill to have. It's a good way to look at your work. It's a good way to lay out work and think about it more in terms of a single photo. It's not backlit, so you're going to be challenged by some shadows and highlights that you might not otherwise notice if you're only looking at screens. The backlit screen can enliven a photo that in a print needs it is missing something. So print it. I remember in my darkroom days when I would put that roll of film in spool it onto the reel, and I'd be so excited to see what I had shot, and I would develop the film, and then I would pull it out and look at it and under the darkroom light, and then I'd be excited. But I always thought my excitement and pleasure was sloped downwards, because by the time I got to the individual photos, I'm like, that didn't work and that didn't work. But it was the printing process that revealed more than you could see. It's almost like Instagram is looking at a negative through a light, and a print is the final product, and it's going to reveal problems and challenges that you might not catch until you get it into God. Make a big print, make a a, a, a 13 by 19 or 12 by 18 print, and you're really going to start to see the problems you're having with focus or composition. And so I think printing is a really, really good exercise. I mean, even if you bring them to the drugstore and start with 4 by 6 prints, it costs you a few pennies, a few cents to at least get something physical in your hands and push it around on a table and compare things. It is an important part of the process that I think has fallen away for a lot of photographers in
Yeah,
the purely digital world. And it's valuable. It's really valuable.
that's a good advice. It's something I've been looking into as well, but it's always postponed. But
Yeah,
it's interesting to me for that you at in the back there that you're making like series, that you're doing it with prints and not just on a computer. I don't know, in like a Photoshop file, whatever, putting photos together. Actual making your series is an actual physical.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can't visually keep track of it all on a computer screen. I mean, if you were to put up pictures from that you're developing a project and you had 40 pictures, if you try to put them on one screen, and I'm getting older, I need reading glasses. If you put them all up on just a single, even a large screen, you're not getting any sense of the broader work of where it's going, how things relate to each other. You've got tiny little thumbnails you're working with. Get it out on a table, spread it out on the floor. Look at it as a larger idea, a larger body of work. It's very valuable. It's very valuable. And again, it doesn't you don't have to be a master printer. Get them done. Get them done at the drugstore and see what you've got. It's a very revealing process.
Yeah. I was, when preparing for this conversation, one question that came to me was, she must have an amazing amount of photos in her Lightroom catalog. And now I'm thinking, how many shoeboxes do you have with prints?
Uh, Plenty, a lot. I mean, I do throw some out, and I kind of categorize them by project. But I've got boxes and boxes of 4x6 prints that are a starting place, and boxes and boxes of 8x10s that when I want to see them, how in a bigger format, and boxes of big ones,
And you really
drawers of
like
big ones.
organize all your work so you can like go back to
Oh
10 years
well,
or
kinda.
okay.
In an ideal world, it's no such thing in reality.
No, yeah. But because in my mind it was like her Lightroom catalog must be
But there's a
amazing.
space. Yeah, but there's a spatial aspect to a print and playing with prints. It also occupies space as opposed to a screen. It's different. You can look at them in a large space and have a different sort of reaction
Yeah,
than
definitely. Yeah.
flipping through on a screen. It's very different. And listen, I won't lie, the bulk of the time I spend is on a screen when I'm editing and sorting and deciding and starring and ranking my work, is all on a screen. But then when it's the things that I think are good, that I think are maybe even not so good. Is this interesting in a print? Does the print say something different? It helps you look at your work in a broader and more expansive fashion to have some prints to play with. And it makes it real, it makes it tactile, it makes all that work and time an object, a thing.
True. Yeah.
That-
I will go well, I will do it on my screen later today, but I will order some prints for
Some
sure.
prints.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna do
it
it.
doesn't. The drugstores can get you, or Snapfish, or all sorts of online things. I don't know in Antwerp and the Europe what the services are, but you can get prints cheap, and they won't be great. And trust me, they'll all be a little dark, because you're used to looking at all your photographs backlit. But that's not how they're. If you're ever going to put a print on a wall or make a book or a zine, it's going to be in print, and you've got to learn how to deal with your work in print in addition to the delights of a backlit screen.
Very true. And so earlier you were talking about the going to the website of the up photographers to see like their new work. Is there a way for you that you now keep well inspired, of course, with new photographers, but maybe also some of the classics? Is there like, how do you find your inspiration for
I'm
your
I
work?
really I'm a book lover, and I buy a lot of photography books, and I just think that is the very best way to educate your eye and look at everything. And it's not just photography. I look at art, and I'm I'm a reader. I read a lot. I always have. Movies. I think you have to really educate your eye. And for me, books are a great way to do that, and to see how other bodies of work have been pulled together. I tend to like a monograph. I tend to like a book that's a very thoughtful, meaningful body of work, as opposed to kind of the best of, or a big survey of a lifetime career. I mean, certainly I have those as well, but I think the books are the best way to start. No writer would become a writer if they weren't also a voracious reader and consumer of
Yeah,
literature, or great nonfiction, whatever the case may be. My education, I wasn't educated in photography. I didn't study photography. I started a master's degree in art history, but my education has come through books that I can buy. And if you can't afford the books, there are great libraries around. Don't just do it all on Instagram. That's going to pull you down, uh, bring you to places you might not be able might not want to go. I mean, there's an appeal on Instagram to the punchy, the colorful, the light and shadow, the single figure in a street with a lot of great architecture around, and those are very satisfying on Instagram. They garner a lot of attention, but really they're not very interesting to me.
No,
And
I
so
see what you're saying. Yeah.
you have to avoid that. The pull of that with Instagram can be very seductive, and some of the pictures of mine that I like a lot don't really garner much attention on Instagram because it's not a good place to take it all in. So books are there's a whole education to be had in photo books, and you can only expand your understanding and your visual language and your appreciation of so many things by educating your eye.
Yeah. And also, I think with like a book forces you to take your time with a photo. Like on Instagram, it's easy to scroll by. There are I've made photos that I just know won't work on Instagram because like the actual subject is so small that you won't see it on Instagram. And in a print, it would be much more interesting. So that's also why I think books are better, because it forces you to take the time to look at it and observe the photo.
To
So
bring your own perspective to the book. I mean,
yeah,
to get a new book, does this book work for me? Are the pictures strong? Are they say is the body of work saying something about the world or the photographer or the point of view? And those are all, you have to cast a critical eye on those things and find out what resonates with you. What interests me may not interest you. And if it doesn't appeal to me, it doesn't mean it's good. Maybe it just doesn't hit me in the right place. So,
yeah,
but
or at the
to
right
to
time.
yeah, and so it's I always say, I talk a lot with my children about books we're reading, and one of my daughters will say, "Well, I just could get into that book at all, and it could have been something that I loved." I said, "Well, maybe you're not the right age. It doesn't speak to you. It doesn't have to speak to you if I love it." Uh, but it's always an interesting discussion about why. So I'm certain, I'm absolutely certain, like, you can find the comments online of people who find my work uninteresting and banal and whatever. But listen to your critics too, because sometimes they have something uh, to learn from. Often they do. But certainly work isn't for everybody, and it's fine by me. And very often my work isn't for me. There's so much failure in what you do, and I'm trying to push myself forward and make compelling photographs that only I can make or say something about me. And so I hate most of my own work.
Yeah,
So I agree with I agree with my critics
yeah.
a lot of the time.
I followed a workshop in May it was, and the photographer Chris Harrison told me as well, like, just make as many photos, like photograph everything you find interesting. You have to make a lot of shit just to find like the 3 or 4 gems of the day.
Absolutely. And it drives, it's propulsive too, if you can be secure enough in yourself to pick yourself up after a bad day and do it again and again. And that is how you get better. That is how you find what interests you. It's pick yourself up after a bad day and do it again and do it again and do it again. And that is the only way in this genre, and in most things in life, frankly, to get better at something. It's practice, and you want to have the passion to drive you towards it, but it's a lot of failure, and that keeps you humble, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I give workshops in smartphone photography to, well, it's mostly to people who are in business, like content marketers and stuff. And I also always mention, like, if I go to an event for a paid event that I have to photograph for the business, I come home with like 1,500 photos, and I'll only deliver like 100, 150 if it's a good day. There's no way to make like one photo and have it be perfect. And it's also a lot about looking at the crappy photos and s- thinking about why they're not good. Did you miss your timing? Was it a bad subject maybe? Or you're not feeling it or whatever? And it's yeah, there's, I think if you go through to most people's libraries of Lightroom or whatever program you use, you will see 1% of their photos,
that
maybe.
were actually from
That were
what were
actually good,
actually
yeah.
taken. Yeah, yeah. I heave ho a lot. I delete a lot at the end at the end of the day. I had a issue where I accidentally deleted a whole trip that I had taken to Italy, and I only was able to save a few of them. So ever since then, I saved my memory cards. So it's made me. It works. It's a little expensive, but it works for me because I throw pictures easily, so it doesn't clog my hard drive, and I don't just have such a vast library that it's intimidating. So I freely delete and pretty quickly things that aren't working. But I know if there was, if for some reason I thought, I wonder what I took on either side of this more interesting photo. Was there something better there? I know I've got it in a drawer on a card somewhere and it's labeled by the date, so I could find all the things that I've deleted
Okay, so you delete the files, but you keep all your photos on you buy new
on.
cards every time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow, okay.
And really, actually, what I should do is just take them all and dump them on a huge hard drive. But again, there's something, maybe it's a little like from my film days that you have all those negatives.
Yeah,
I mean,
to me it's crazy, but at the same time it does feel kind of like it still makes it tangible, even though it's a hard drive.
yeah, but
Yeah,
and I'm crazed about backing everything up in triplicate. I've got a backup drive in my house and I backup drive in the cloud. And I, that one experience so terrified me that I've gotten very good about, backing up in duplicate or triplicate. So yeah,
that's
I'm
very good.
triplicate. I've got my my laptop, my desktop, the cards themselves, and a cloud backup. So hopefully, you know,
Yeah.
Armageddon after Armageddon there'll be something left, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, there was an exercise as well to put things like in extra hard drives and like ask my sister if she could like keep those
Yep.
hard drives. So in
Yep.
case
Yeah, that's
my
great.
place burns down, it's
Burn
still,
down. Yep.
but it's stupid that you have to be so,
But it's for me, it makes things more efficient because I can throw the bad ones more easily. Whereas I used to, oh, can I really throw this one away? And now it's like out, out, out. Because really, it's on a given day, if you get one or two good photos, it's a good day, really. Sometimes I've had a few days where there might be three or four good photos, but the ones that are going to last are they're precious. They're kind of rare when
yeah.
it all comes together. I mean, I often say, "Oh, I should find a more efficient genre that didn't require, a 10-mile walk for a photo." But this is part of its appeal.
I think it's
It's
the
difficult.
healthiest art form.
I'm a very determined person. I think part of the appeal for me is that it is so difficult to do well.
Yeah, that's for me as well. And there are moments only you can capture, and it'll never happen again.
Yep.
You're the only one who has it. Hopefully, that's
Yep.
at least that's the aim. So I think we should wrap up here. Uh, One thing that will I think because of your photos are printed in a book, you will have backups all over the world now.
Yeah.
Soon, one in my house as well. So that's
Great.
maybe the
Thank you.
best way to back your photos up. So thank you, Melissa, for your time and insights. If anyone wants to follow her, their links are in the description on no matter what platform you're listening to. Make sure to follow her amazing photos on Instagram, but of course also on our website. So make sure to buy the book now that there's a second edition. And also make sure to follow the podcast, of course, for upcoming updates. And again, Melissa, thank you for being here.
What a lovely conversation. Thank you, Frederick. It was a great pleasure.